The big story here is George Pickens. George Pickens throughout the game, especially late in the game, just looked uninterested in playing football. And that's what you can't have. If you're going to be a superstar, if you want to be the best receiver in the National Football League, you can never be disengaged. It doesn't matter if the game's going your way or not going your way. You can't just disappear in these games or else you're not going to have impact. And just right here, cruising routes. You're the guy. You're the guy. CD Lamb is not in this game. He's out. And you get intercepted on your slant routes. And you can't be the guy and half-ass it. I'm sorry. That's just, you can't, it's unacceptable. And if you're the Dallas Cowboys and you're looking at him and you're looking to pay him big-time receiver money, $40 million, you got to look at this tape and say, hey, is this a guy we can trust paying $40 million to show up regardless of circumstance? I don't know.
So first off, for what George Pickens has to understand is this entire season, all he's received is applause. And he's earned that.
Yeah.
And so now the boos are going to be as loud as the applause. And Cam used the analogy that sometimes wide receivers play possum. Well, we needed him to be a raccoon.
Yeah.
I needed him to be a savage last night. I needed him to go out and show me how much it mattered to him. And just like you, I'm rooting for George Pickens. Just like you, I like George Pickens. And Cam is talking about the way we watch film. Here is how we watch film. Let me talk from a defensive standpoint.
Okay.
When we turn the film on, when you look at your grade sheet, at the end of your grade sheet, there's something called a loaf. So let's say Stephen A is running the football down the left sideline and I'm on the opposite side of the field or the middle of the field. If you're still running and I'm not sprinting to tackle you, sprinting to get in the film or get into the view, then that's a loaf for me. This is the same thing we're seeing from George Pickens, a loaf.
Right.
This is the same thing we're seeing from George Pickens. When you run the slant, which Cam, we can't give him the excuse that the schematics are basics because this is how he won the game last week against the Kansas City Chiefs. He ran a slant. He ran an inside route, and then he turned up down the sideline. He finished the game on an inside route because he ran hard, because he came back to the football. George Pickens knows that effort wasn't enough. George Pickens knows that people are watching him just to see these things. And I'm not going to question his football character here. I'm going to question his awareness. Because see, what happened to me was when they told me, when Tom Coughlin looked at me and said, I don't believe you're big enough and physical enough to play safety in this league. You know what I said? I'm going to try to kill everybody I hit from now on. And if I'm going to be out the league and if they're not going to give me a job, it won't be because of that. If I'm George Pickens and I know I am ultimately talented, top 5 talented, and all they ask from me is effort, you're going to have to stop me from running. George Pickens let himself down more than anything last night.
What's going on there, guys? We back with another one. Want to talk about George Pickens on today. As you know, it's going viral. People talking about how they don't feel like he finished plays yesterday. He was lollygagging against the Detroit Lions. And this comes after weeks of Pickens being one of the brightest spots on the entire Dallas Cowboys roster. I mean, some even saying now he's receiver one. Those big plays, he's made them in several games. You know, they get the split with the Eagles of this year, winning their home game and in 2 competitive games with the Eagles, too. So I thought that was really good. And then they come back and beat the Chiefs. You know, the very next week, people are saying, is this the year that the Cowboys can make a run at it? Even though, they're 66-1. You look back, a couple plays they could win that Packers game. They were dominated by the Bears, and you'd love to have that Cardinals game back. But they're in a decent position to compete, right? But last night, a lot of people are focusing on the effort or lack thereof they feel like from George Pickens. We're going to get into what was said about it because he responded directly to Richard Sherman, and he went in. Let's check it out. Clip 1. So George Pickens, he hears his commentary. He's sitting down. He's watching the shows today. He's getting wind, getting texts. However, he's getting information. And he says this in response on his Instagram story. He says, this is a team game. I'm not the only one on the team. Stop becoming an analyst and talking about one player when you're playing a team's game. Lots of it has to go right for explosive plays. And it's funny because I thought former players would know that, such as Richard Sherman, who, by the way, ain't SH without the Legion of Boom. We all remember San Francisco. Brother, much love. Don't speak on me unless you know the game of football. As a former player, not a D-Rock, fan analysts that act like double team is not a thing or certain bracket coverages don't exist, knowing you play ball would show me you a Leach weirdo. Now, Twitter eat this up. And he got a bunch of laughing emojis. Claudio World. Okay, so that was George Pickens' response. And I think right now Mr. Pickens needs to be focused on what the Dallas Cowboys is going on. Analysts are still going to talk. I don't understand, like, when you're in the heat of battle, you can shoot your shot back, but whether you think they know what they're talking about or not, they're going to continue to give their honest critique on the game. Only thing I would say is Richard Sherman, when he was playing, he wouldn't have wanted anybody saying anything like that about him. You remember the whole thing where he say he's better at life than Skip and all that. So I think it's funny now that we see him in that same seat, somebody coming at him the way that he was coming at Skip, even though he's a former player, right? I think the former players are starting to see that, when you have any criticism for a player, they're going to feel betrayed because they feel like you got in between them lines of two and you should stick to a certain code until they retire and they start commentating. The cycle will continue on and on. But, as far as Pickens, I think he does need to give maximum effort. If there's no way he can watch that film and feel like he did everything he could possibly do to catch some of those balls. So I think, you might not want to hear that, but sometimes the things you don't want to hear may be the thing you need to hear. You having such a phenomenal season, you don't want the last portion of this first season with Dallas to go a certain way. Don't give them no reason not to pay you. Don't give them no reason not to pay you because they're going to look definitely back to the things that were talked about in Pittsburgh, and they're going to try to put them together. And then they're going to try to reduce your value to he's talented, and you can control that. So, again, sometimes the thing you don't want to hear may be the thing that makes you kick it into gear. So if you come out there and you finishing plays and you playing harder, you know what Richard Sherman said actually works. You trying to get a bag, you showing you one of the top receivers in the game all year. I don't think that's any question. But there were several plays last night. People feel like you could have gave more of an effort. Now, is there double teaming things? Yes. But on some of those clips, you didn't give it your all, So if you won't battling an injury, you won't nicked up in some type of way. Because sometimes I be thinking about that too. Players be playing through things, and they just not telling you. They just giving it all they got. So I don't know exactly what he's going through. But my advice to him would be to control the things you can control. Everybody is saying you're not giving maximum effort on tape, and Ryan Clark saying you loafing. And this is pretty much standard language around the NFL. I think you should take heed to those words. You can say what you want back, you can shoot back, but deep down, if I was you in my mind, I'd be like, you know what? I see what they're talking about, and they kind of right. I could have gave a little more effort. So that's where I stand with it. But yeah, he clapped back, man. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.